we stand on guard for thee.
Et maintenant que l'on ouvre les portes, let the doors be opened. Order. Alors. Honorable député de Mirabel.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, in order to privatize Air Canada, the Mulroney government made a solemn commitment to the people of Quebec, including providing legal guarantees for maintenance activities. Like as the Liberals and Conservatives chose not to enforce the Act, Air Canada had free rein to contravene it. Thanks to aeronautics, Quebec is a more advanced technological society than Canada, but I'm very worried when I see the lack of concern shown by the federal government. Maintaining an aircraft is more than just changing the oil, Mr. Speaker. It's about taking it apart and putting it back together with new parts. The entire industry and suppliers are suffering. By refusing to enforce its own act, Canada has betrayed these employees. We know that. But it's also reneged on the solemn commitment it made to the people of Quebec. We have chosen our side, Mr. Speaker. The workers of Avios.
The Honourable Member for York South-Weston.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring attention to an idea that will assist in our fight to end discrimination and attain real equality in our country. According to research in the US, UK, and Canada, people with English-sounding names are nearly twice as likely to get job callbacks than people with ethnic-sounding names. Name-blind recruitment is a tool adopted by the British government that removes names from resumes, prevents unconscious bias, and ensures that everyone can develop and succeed based on their potential, talent, and discrimination. I urge this House to look into embracing name-blind recruitment right here in Canada. We must ensure our public service adopts name-blind recruitment, as this important step will build a public service that is even more talented, diverse, and effective. It is crucial that Canadians who've got the grades, the skills, and the determination succeed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I want to take this opportunity today to underscore the work done by the people who contributed to making the 350th anniversary of Charlebourg so successful. Located in the heart of my riding, Charlebourg is now one of the 6 districts of Quebec City. However, this merger dates back to 2002, but the people of Charlebourg have always felt a sense of belonging. In 2015, they began 12 months of celebrations. This was all organized around historical reminders, large-scale events, and festive meals. I'd like to congratulate the organizing committee. Under the aegis of the chair, Mr. René Cloutier, the team put together excellent, exceptional programs. My thoughts go out to the many volunteers who rolled up their sleeves and helped the people of Charlebourg celebrate their roots with dignity. It goes to show that regardless of the name a municipality is given, it always reflects its roots. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, on February 19th, I slept in a car. Brampton's mayor, local city partners, and many others took part in the United Way's longest night. It was cold, it was uncomfortable, and my neck was sore. But this was only one night, Mr. Speaker. And sadly, too many Canadians do this night after night, some for years at a time. This experience gave me a small glimpse into the challenges of homelessness in Canada. I'm glad we could bring a bit of awareness to this vital issue in many of our communities. I hope to work more with all my colleagues in this House to get people into affordable shelter. How we treat our most in need is a reflection of ourselves. If we work together, we can solve this issue for the people of Brampton South and all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, New Democrats from across the country will proudly wear pink in solidarity with victims of bullying in Canada. The Pink Shirt movement was established in 2007 by two Nova Scotia teens who bought pink T-shirts to show their support for a boy who was bullied for simply wearing a pink T-shirt. Like them, we want anyone who feels lonely or desperate because they are a victim of bullying to know we support them. Out Saskatoon is an organization in my riding on the front lines of helping those impacted by bullying. Their vision to live in a community that values and supports people of all gender identities, expressions and sexualities provides us a way forward. New Democrats believe the federal government has a leadership role to play in eliminating all forms of bullying. That is why we are calling on the government to take immediate steps to adopt a national anti-bullying strategy. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Central Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month, I wish to draw attention to two Canadian civil rights icons from my riding that help promote equality across this great country. The first of these two civil rights champions is Miss Viola Desmond, who was arrested in 1946 in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, for sitting in and refusing to leave the whites-only section of the Roseland Theatre. Miss Desmond was jailed but challenged the criminal charges against her and won. Her courage and conviction paved the way for the province to strike down its segregation laws, and her story is now featured in the newest Canada Heritage Minute. I also wish to pay homage to the members of the No. 2 Construction, Canada's only predominantly black battalion, which formed 100 years ago in Pictou, Nova Scotia. This battalion has recently been honoured by the issuance of a commemorative stamp by Canada Post that recognizes the role that it played in breaking down racial barriers in the Canadian military so black citizens could freely enlist in service of our country. I commend these initiatives that recognize the importance of these heroes and their contributions for a fairer, more equal, and better Canada.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to thank the men and women who work in Canada's nuclear energy industry and to welcome the scientists, researchers, workers, and companies here to Ottawa for their annual meetings. Many Canadians don't know that $7 billion in economic activity comes from this industry, and there's over 70,000 jobs from coast to coast. In my riding of Durham, the Darlington Generating Station produces clean, reliable, and affordable electricity, and combined with Pickering and with the Bruce, gives Ontario over half of its electricity greenhouse gas emission-free, Mr. Speaker. Exactly. And while the new government talks about greenhouse gas reductions a lot, Mr. Speaker, it never mentions the nuclear energy industry and its contribution. Canada was the second country to have controlled nuclear fission, Mr. Speaker. We have high-tech and important jobs. It's time for this government to stand up and all Canadians to recognize the role nuclear energy plays in Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, we recently celebrated Family Day in Ontario, and I rise to welcome two new families from Syria to our Canadian family and to my riding of Scarborough Centre. The Al Jabra family are sponsored by the Jame Abu Bakr Siddiq Mosque, and I was pleased to meet Lua, Hiba, and their children at the North American Muslim Foundation's Family Day event. They are settling in well, and their children, Jody, Talan, and Jawad, really enjoyed the bouncy castle. Also new to Scarborough is the Samudi family, who took to the ice for the first time at my Family Day skating party. They are sponsored by the Rosedale United Church, and their daughter Salam is looking forward to polishing her English skills through the Toronto District School Board's LEAP program. Mr. Speaker, I ask the House to join me in welcoming the Al Jabra and Samudi families to Canada. Welcome home.
The Honourable Member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Monsieur le Président, je prends la...
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to talk about hockey. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to acknowledge my community. There are many organizers and volunteers, and we are preparing for the World Hockey Championship that will take place on the weekend. If hockey is our national sport, the most popular sport, it is something that is very important. Thanks to community funding, this 4-day event will bring together more than 8,000 viewers and many teams from the world, from across the world.
Live bands, fireworks, frigid temperatures, tailgate parties, barrel fires, double-wide Zambonis. The World Pond Hockey Championships take hometown hockey to a whole new level. The World Pond Hockey...
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, if you launch a startup in Canada, your competitors may be south of the border, where they get paid in U.S. dollars, have more access to risk capital, and pay lower marginal income tax rates. How can you compensate and sign up the best and brightest here at home when you have little money to spare? The answer is often stock options, where your workers accept lower pay in exchange for a piece of future gains. Doubling taxes on stock options may smother them right out of existence. And when in fact we should do the opposite, Mr. Speaker. The goal of social justice should not be to turn workers against business owners, but to turn workers into business owners, as Thatcher put it, to free all people to lift themselves up through work, risk, and smarts. That is the Canadian way.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, today I stand in support of the people of La Loche, Saskatchewan. In the past month, this community has shown unity and bravery in the face of great tragedy. The heartbreak and loss accompanied by such hardship is not one that can easily be forgotten. However, the community has demonstrated great resilience as they move forward together. Today, I ask Canadians to keep the people of La Loche in their thoughts as educators and students return to school. Healing takes time. Let us stand together to show that the entire country supports La Loche as they continue on this healing journey. Merci, thank you, miigwech.
The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. In addition to the elected officials in this House and in the other place, there are people who work very hard to ensure that our presence in Ottawa is pleasant. In this spirit, it's my great pleasure to underscore the work and dedication of Marguerite Charlebois, who has been working for 35 years in the parliamentary restaurant.
Margaret took care of all members of Parliament. She first served with our Prime Minister when our Prime Minister was running and playing around these walls. Merci, Marguerite.
Thank you, Marguerite. You are a remarkable example of dedication, a source of smiles, and above all, you've always made us feel at home. Thank you very much, and bravo, Margaret.
Je note que l'honorable député n'a pas noté.
I noted that the honourable member did not identify her presence in the House, but I'm sure that if he had sought unanimous consent to do so, he would have received it.
The Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On February 18th in Calgary, the All Respect campaign began with the goal of telling the story of hardworking members of Canada's critically important energy sector. They are our neighbours, our fellow Canadians, and I think the All Respect campaign has started at the right time. With extremely low oil prices, it's important to remind all Canadians that our energy sector is a key part of the Canadian economy.
Absolutely.
We are lucky to have one of the strongest, most respected regulatory systems in the world, and we also have one of the best trained workforces in the energy sector.
Hear, hear.
We need to encourage and support their families that struggle through these tough times. I encourage parliamentarians to support Oil Respect campaign, which will be coming to a community near you. So, on this party, we continue to stand up for our energy sector, for Canadian workers. Please support Oil Respect campaign.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, on January 25, 2016, the Honourable Member from Vancouver Granville was named one of the 8 women to watch by the Nobel Women's Initiative. This venerable group of Nobel Prize-winning women praised the Honourable Member of the Kwakwaka'wakw people for being the first Indigenous woman in Canada to become Minister of Justice and Attorney General. As a former provincial Crown prosecutor, BC Treaty Commissioner, and Regional Chief of the BC Assembly of First Nations, the honourable member is truly a woman of great accomplishment. Mr. Speaker, these achievements were not born of ambition. They were cast in the fire of a profound love for country and a desire to serve and improve the lives of her fellow citizens. Her achievements were made real through the honourable member's hard work, dedication, compassion, and strong values. She is an example to all women who seek to make a difference. I ask this House to join me in congratulating the honourable member for Vancouver-Granville for her recent recognition, her leadership, and her heart.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Was the 26th annual Missing and Murdered Women's Memorial March. Just like in the last 25 years, I marched with family members, elders, women and Aboriginal leaders, activists, as a public expression of our sorrow and to demand justice. Hundreds joined the march, and the NDP leader was among them. We marched because far too many Aboriginal women face physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual violence. They suffer from the legacy of colonization. They live in poverty. Access to safe, secure, affordable housing is just a dream. A national inquiry done right can be the catalyst for historical change and healing. We need to hear the haunting cries of family members and value the knowledge of women and Aboriginal organizations that work with Indigenous women and girls. The Missing and Murdered Women Coalition has made a thoughtful submission regarding the design of the national inquiry to the minister. I ask the government to honour these recommendations.
The honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud and honoured to rise in the House to support Pink Shirt Day, a national anti-bullying campaign to help youth in need. Bullying can take many forms, including name-calling, pushing, and more common, cyberbullying. It is important that victims of bullying know that they are not alone and their help and support is available. That is why wearing a pink shirt sends a strong message that we all care. It may seem simple, but the act of wearing a shirt can start conversations, and conversations can be a big step towards healing and helping. As the official opposition critic for families, children, and social development, I urge everyone to post on your social media feeds the hashtag #PigShirtPromise. Support Pink Shirt Day, help end bullying, and vow to help spread kindness. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Miramichi-Grand Lake. Mr. Speaker, today Canadians across the country are wearing pink as part of a Pink Shirt Day to support the anti-bullying campaign. Words have an impact, and when they are designed to tease, devalue, or belittle, they can be devastating, and that impact can last a lifetime. Research has shown clearly that bullying can lead to anxiety, depression, physical problems, and also to suicide.
Bullying should not be part of growing up for anyone, and school should be a place to learn, not a place to fear. The time to say no to bullying and cyberbullying is now. Let us use our voice for those who may be too afraid to use theirs. We are stronger because of our differences, not in spite of them. Everyone deserves a chance to show the world who they really are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable Leader of
the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first the Prime Minister promised that he would only borrow $10 billion. Then he broke that promise and said it would have to be more than $10 billion. Now he's saying he's going to have to borrow $18 billion, but that's not counting the first $10 billion. So maybe it's $28 billion, but definitely not $30 billion. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have thrown around so many numbers over there, no one knows what's going on with them. Can the Prime Minister just admit that him and the Finance Minister are just making it up as they go along?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For 10 years, Canadians struggled with lower growth and the kind of government that did not
create the opportunities that Canadians knew we need to build a stronger future for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for our children. That's why the Liberals campaign on a promise and a commitment to invest in our communities once again, to offer Canadians and the middle class and those working hard to join it the opportunity to succeed and to create once again the kind of economy that everyone can be proud of participating in. That's what we're committed to doing. That's what Canadians elected us to do. That's exactly what we're going to do.
That's it.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, during the campaign, the Liberals promised Canadians that they weren't going to borrow more than $10 billion. Now, we've learned that they've brought that up to $30 billion. And we don't know where these numbers are coming from. Why is the Prime Minister borrowing money that we don't have when there's no recession and there's no plan to pay it back? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Well, this is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, to see my Conservative colleagues continue to repeat the same arguments that Canadians rejected in the last election. We know that we need to invest in the Canadian economy. We know that the middle class needs help, and we need to create good jobs and facilitate the creation of good jobs. That's exactly what we committed to do, and that's exactly what we are going to do in the years to come. Thank you.
Now the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister couldn't point to a single solitary country that actually asked us to pull our CF-18s out of the fight against ISIS, an American general in charge of the airstrike said he was sad to see our pilots come home. He also said he hopes that the Canadians will come back. Why did the Prime Minister mislead Canadians so badly when he suggested that our American allies were just fine with us pulling out our CF-18s?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our allies were pleased to know that Canada continues to be a strong member of the coalition and indeed has stepped up our involvement in the fight against ISIS. The way we're doing it is by doing what Canada has done a very good job of. We are doing more training, we are helping on intelligence, we are doing more humanitarian and refugee support. Indeed, as the Brent McGurk, the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for the Global Coalition to counter ISIL said, we welcome the significant enhancements our key partner Canada will bring to coming phases of the campaign to defeat ISIL. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, only the Prime Minister thinks that we're stepping up our fight by ending our combat mission. It makes no sense, and neither did it make sense when this Prime Minister said that the budgets balance themselves. Now, we've broken through a $10 billion budget, a deficit commitment, Mr. Speaker. Now we're hot on a trail of a $30 billion deficit, a completely wrecked campaign commitment. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know, does the Prime Minister not understand that deficits now mean higher taxes in the future, and does he still believe that budgets balance themselves?
Honourable Prime Minister.
What the member opposite seems to continue to fail to understand is that Canadians know that we need to invest in our economy. We need to invest in the kind of infrastructure that our communities have been asking for. We need to invest in the kind of jobs and support for the middle class that Canadians right across the country demanded in the last election. That member and his party failed to offer Canadians the kind of vision for the future they needed, and that's why they're sitting on the other side of the House today.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
But the problem here, Mr. Speaker, is that the Prime Minister made a commitment, a clear, specific promise of not more than $10 billion deficits. And this week, they admitted that there was going to be a deficit of maybe $30 billion. That's tripled in 3 months, Mr. Speaker. So it's a clear question for the Prime Minister. How are they going to reduce these huge deficits that are going up every day without increasing taxes? And what taxes will they increase? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see that the Conservatives don't understand how to create growth in the Canadian economy. We need to invest to create that growth. And the 10 years of cuts and service reductions and tax cuts for the wealthiest instead of those who need it most have led us to a situation where the Canadian economy isn't firing on all cylinders. And that's why we're making investments. And frankly, Canadians asked us to make those investments in the election campaign. Honourable Member for Outremont.
Another First Nations community in Northern Ontario has just declared a state of emergency, not because of a weather disaster or because of any accident, but because of the everyday reality there that is simply unacceptable in our country. One woman died as her husband held her hand, and the community's nursing station ran out of the oxygen that could have saved her life. 2 4-year-olds died of fever because of strep throat, and an epidemic of suicides has hit children as young as 10 years old. The regional chief talks of discrimination and institutional racism in the healthcare system. He's right. What's the government doing about it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the honourable member for bringing forward this tragedy that we all know far too well. It goes on not just in Northern Ontario but across the country. We need to fix a relationship that has broken over the past decades and indeed centuries between Canada and Indigenous peoples. That is why this government is pledged to renew a new relationship, putting real money forward to build support on infrastructure, on health, on a broad range of things, and creating a true nation-to-nation relationship. This is something I know all members in this House can agree on. We need to begin to be true partners to First Nations.
The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 days, the Prime Minister and his Minister of Transport have claimed that Air Canada has committed to establishing a maintenance centre for C-Series jets here. Now, that's false. There is no concrete commitment to build such a centre. At most, there's a vague intention from Air Canada to farm out maintenance. The Prime Minister is clearly improperly informed. Can he tell us why he went back on his promise to help the 2,600 Avios workers by letting Air Canada out of its legal obligations, which yet are very clear in the law? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Quite the contrary, Mr. Speaker. We are helping the workers in the manufacturing sector across the country, particularly in the airspace sector, by investing in high-quality manufacturing, including in looking at how we can help Bombardier. We are working to note the great news that Air Canada is going to buy C-Series jets, and that Bombardier, Air Canada, and Quebec are going to work together to ensure that the C-Series is dealt with in Quebec for 20 years. This is good news for our industry and our workers. The Honourable Member for Outremont. So, the Prime Minister now admits that there is no clear guarantee that such a centre will be built. Instead of applying the Act, as he has the obligation to do, that's the very foundation of a democratic society where the law applies equally to all, the Liberals are changing the Air Canada Act to prevent future problems. Who is the pilot here, Air Canada or the Prime Minister? Will the Prime Minister commit to not changing the law for Air Canada and finally defend the 2,600 Avios workers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are very concerned by the loss of jobs at Bombardier and of workers who have lost their jobs over the last few years. We want to work to restore the strength of the aerospace industry across Canada, not just in Quebec. That is exactly what we are doing, working with industry, with Bombardier, with Air Canada, with Quebec and the other provinces to ensure that we have a strong future for Canada's economy and for our exceptional workers. The Honourable Member for Outremont.
As Kevin Page so eloquently put it, the fudge factor is overwhelming. The Liberals promised to close the stock option tax loophole. Their platform notes that about 8,000 high-income Canadians take home more than $500 million each year from this one loophole alone. But now it seems the Liberals are secretly telling businesses they're going to break that promise as well. Can the Prime Minister finally give a straight answer? Will the upcoming budget close the stock option tax loophole for wealthy CEOs? Yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The honourable member has been around this House long enough to know that all will be answered on March 22nd when we put forward our budget, which is focused on creating growth for the middle class, creating prosperity in Canada where we have struggled in the past, and ensuring that middle class and those who are working hard to join the middle class will have the kinds of opportunities and future for themselves and their children that we know Canadians deserve.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that this Liberal finance minister has no money. That's because he's already blown through the surplus left by the Conservative government. He's spending money that Canadians do not have. That's right. The billions of dollars that he is recklessly spending will come from our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Canadians get it. Why doesn't this finance minister? Good question.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives left a deficit, Mr. Speaker. They left public finances in a lamentable state, but thankfully, Mr. Speaker, on October 19th, Canadians chose growth, Mr. Speaker. We started with our economic plan in December by reducing taxes for the middle class. We will continue in the budget with the Canada Child Benefit. We have a plan to invest in innovation and in productivity, and we have a historic plan to invest in infrastructure. That, Mr. Speaker, is what it means to invest in growth in this country.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans know that the handout from the Liberal government is symbolic at best. It comes only hours after Encana cuts 20% of its workforce. Alberta doesn't want welfare or photo ops. This Prime Minister talks to the Alberta Premier about a transfer from the Liberal federal government to the provincial NDP government, and they get excited. But they don't talk about shipping our natural resources. When will this Prime Minister help Alberta sell its resources instead of handing the provincial government borrowed money?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know the global decline in oil prices is producing hardship for Alberta and other energy-producing provinces. The global downturn in commodity prices has affected many sectors in the Canadian economy, and we are monitoring the situation closely. However, with our large and diverse natural resource endowment, Canada remains favourably positioned to respond to the projected long-term growth in global demand for natural resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good job.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, this government is letting Canadians down. We left the fiscal house in order. In November, there was a surplus of $1 billion. That's a fact. The Liberals promised in the election campaign that they would have a modest deficit. So apparently for them, $18 billion, that's modest. And yet the numbers keep going up. Where will we be in a month when the budget is tabled? If they can't master spending, as they've talked about in their plan, will they be able to control spending? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, only the Conservatives think that you can look at 2 months to see if there was a surplus or not in a fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that we have a plan for growth. We started in December. We will continue with our plan for growth. Mr. Speaker, the time has come to invest in Canada's economy. That's what Canadians asked for on October 19th, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, where is this government going to get the money for its out-of-control spending? The Liberal Party has clearly begun. Taxpayers and small businesses across the country are concerned about this government's irresponsible spending. Canadian businesses have lost trust. And let's be honest, this money is going to come out of the pockets of Canadian taxpayers to pay back these astronomical deficits. What is this government going to do to stop the hemorrhaging and get things in order? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, all economists agree that this is the time to invest in the economy. The only ones who don't understand that are our colleagues from across the way, Mr. Speaker. At a moment like this, we need to invest in the economy. We need to generate economic growth, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly what the Liberal plan will do. And in the next budget, Mr. Speaker, we will invest in innovation. We will invest in productivity. We will make the investments that the Conservatives did not make in 10 years in infrastructure. In green infrastructure in our communities. That, Mr. Speaker, is what's going to bring growth back to this country.
The member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the Transport Minister's first act was to kill the Toronto Island Airport expansion. He unilaterally ended consultations on expanding the Toronto Island Airport to accommodate what he called the best aircraft in its class, the Bombardier C-Series. Expanding the airport would create jobs that don't require taxpayers to pick up the tab. Why is the minister letting internal Liberal Party politics limit economic development in Toronto and block new jobs at Bombardier?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
I thank my honourable colleague for her question, and she's right. I said it. The C-Series is the finest aircraft in the world in its class. And I'm just delighted that Air Canada has decided that it's going to buy 45 of them from Bombardier and possibly another 30. Not only that, it's going to support the putting into place a centre where the maintenance of this aircraft can be done for the next 20 years. This is going to create jobs. This is good for Bombardier. This is good for the aerospace sector. She should be very happy about it.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, we know that the Liberals like to hide behind pseudo-transparency, but we have learned that in December a secret committee was formed to deal with military procurement and fighter jets. Why is this happening behind closed doors? Mr. Speaker, have the Liberals already decided to abandon Canada's shipbuilding workers and have ships built outside of Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Services and Public Services and Procurement.
The government is determined to apply the national procurement strategy in terms of shipbuilding and build its ships in Canada in an open, transparent manner. No decision has yet been taken concerning the tugboat project.
Our goal is to leverage economic benefits for Canada.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
The arts and culture sector employs 150,000 Canadians and contributes $8 billion to our economy. Conservative cuts damage the sector and threaten good jobs. After pledging $150 million for the CBC and $25 million for Telefilm and the National Film Board, the Liberal Heritage Minister is now waffling. Mr. Speaker, Canadian artists deserve a straight answer. Will the Liberals keep their specific promises on funding for the CBC and film granting agencies, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. We will reinvest in CBC Radio-Canada and we will help the arts and culture industries in this country. Why? Because we believe in it and there hasn't been a lot of funding over the past 10 years regarding arts and culture in Canada. So of course, we pledge to do it and we will continue to invest because we believe that this is part of a true innovation policy in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Did they believe their own promises during the election, the Liberals? The television sector is undergoing major changes, and new CRTC rules that come into effect next week have many workers concerned. Thousands of jobs are at risk. The minister needs to act to protect workers in the cultural sector. During the campaign, the Liberals committed to injecting $150 million into CBC Radio-Canada, $25 million for Telefilm and the NFB, and to double the budget for the Canada Council of the Arts. Will the minister finally keep her word? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. You know, the media sector is indeed facing major challenges when it comes to technology because consumers are choosing different content in different ways. And that's why not only are we going to reinvest in CBC Radio-Canada, but also in different cultural institutions, but also we are going to launch public consultations which will allow different industries, including the media, to know how we can really seize this opportunity in the digital era. Thank you.
Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the American general in charge of the Coalition's Air Combat Task Force against ISIS was surprised to learn that Canada was withdrawing our CF-18 jets when he saw the story on CNN. So much for consulting our allies. Since the government failed to properly advise our allies, and since Parliament has yet to vote on the Liberals' non-combat mission against ISIS, will the Defence Minister stand with our allies and put our CF-18s back in the fight?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member, one, we are in the fight with our coalition partner. Also like to remind the member that Secretary of Defense, his comments, the coalition commander, I've spoken with him directly as well. He said his plan was forward-looking. Spoke to the ground force commander on the ground, who actually was a former commander of the 10th Mountain Division, who I also got to serve with. So I can assure the member our coalition wanted our plan, and this is the exact plan that's needed. Because this fight against ISIL can only happen on the ground.
Exactly. Honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Speaker, no one actually talked to the combat mission for the Air Task Force. Mr. Speaker, Lieutenant General Brown said that our aircraft has been, I quote, pounding the guy so hard that ISIS has been unable to launch any major offensives and is losing territory. He said Canada was one of a handful of countries that had flexibility to act on specific targets and in specific areas. He went on to say, we welcome the CF-18s back if the opportunity presents itself and the political leadership changes its mind. Why is the Liberal government opting out of the combat mission against ISIS? This isn't a fight anymore.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member spent time as the Parliamentary Secretary for Defence in the previous years, I forget the time frame, commended for their service. So you should also understand the meaning of chain of command. So I talked to the coalition commander, the ground force commander, Secretary of Defence. So when I talk to them, they speak for all their the people that work for them, and this is why they like our plan. And I can remind the members that this fight against ISIL can only happen on the ground, not from the air.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, for a third time now, U.S. General Charles Brown, in charge of coalition airstrikes, has said that he is disappointed to see the CF-18s leave. He says it's a little sad to see them leave. I realize that the CF-18 pilots are a little bit disappointed, and I would be too, but they're welcome if they want to come back. That's the general in charge of coalition airstrikes, who says that. When will you bring our CF-18s back to combat? I would like to remind all members to address their comments to the Speaker, the Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to commend our pilots for their great work. As I stated, our plan that we took a very thorough analysis on this. And moving forward, when I spoke with the ground force commander, the first question I asked is, what do you need? He said, intelligence. Because when you go over time, and I'm happy to sit with my critics and explain the reasons why. Because when an enemy, over 1 year, you have to deal with them, they get much smarter. So to target them, the only way to do this is on the ground. And this is the reasons why we have tripled our training mission and doubled our intelligence capacity.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, when you're a soldier in the Canadian Armed Forces, the basis of your involvement is that once you've had the necessary training, you participate in combat. It's important for soldiers to know if they're going to participate in ground combat operations. The United States have declared that they are at war against ISIL. France has done the same. This is a fundamental question for our soldiers. Can the minister tell us if Canada is at war with ISIL, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I fully don't understand the member's question. You know, it is very simple. If it means we're defining fighting against ISIL and defeating them, we are committed to it. We've done it in the past. We will assess the situation, and this is what's needed on the ground right now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, the economic downturn has hit Alberta workers hard. Despite losing their jobs through no fault of their own, laid-off Albertans are at a disadvantage to other Canadians. They work longer to qualify for EI and then receive fewer benefits. Alberta's Premier Notley and Edmonton's Mayor Iveson are asking this government to address EI. Albertans appreciate the stabilization grant, but they also deserve fair access to worker benefits. Will the government act now, today, to assist Alberta families?
Hear, hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are very aware of the serious situation that has faced those workers in Alberta, Newfoundland, Labrador, Saskatchewan, and different parts of the country. We're working hard to reform EI, which has been neglected and doesn't serve any Canadian, basically. But more importantly, we want to ensure that Albertans and those that have been hit by the commodity crisis are dealt with fairly and honourably as soon as possible. And that's what we're working on at this time.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, my region also needs help. I have workers from car dealerships who are having trouble making ends meet after 3 years of being in a lockout. I have seasonal workers who no longer know how to even survive between seasons. The Liberals strongly condemned EI reforms when they were in opposition. Now that they're in power, we get an endless stream of meaningless answers. Will the minister commit to no longer dipping into the EI fund and finally help our workers in need now? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I can say is that, yes, we are interested in hearing from Canadians on the best way to approach changes in EI. We're going from coast to coast to coast, listening to our own House of Commons committee, women, Indigenous people, working Canadians to find a solution that meets our needs as Canadians that are on the job. Thank you for the question.
Honourable Member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian healthcare system is relied upon by all Canadians for access to universal, high-quality and comprehensive healthcare, helped by collaboration between federal, provincial and territorial jurisdictions. The previous health accord negotiated in 2004 has lapsed. There remain many shared priorities before us, including home care, health innovation, access to prescription drugs and mental health. Can the Minister of Health assure this House that a new health accord will be negotiated with the provinces and territories?
Minister of Health.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his excellent question. We agree to say that the healthcare system needs to be modernized, and in that regard, I've already met with my colleagues from the provinces and territories to put in place a new accord that would allow us to deal with some shared priorities, such as access to home care and mental health care, to better meet the needs of Canadians. I will keep my colleagues informed of developments in the coming weeks.
For Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, Vladimir Putin is playing the long game in Russia's illegal occupation of Ukraine. Putin's trying to convince the world that the crisis in Ukraine is over. No. But as Andrei Paruby, the deputy first chair of the Ukrainian parliament, reminded MPs here yesterday, Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian civilians are still dying every day. Mr. Speaker, sanctions are keeping pressure on the Russian leadership. Why are the Liberals so desperate to normalize relations with Putin?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canada stands steadfast with Ukraine. We always have, and we always will, and we will continue our unwavering support for the Ukrainian people. This is well beyond partisanship for all of us. Engaging in dialogue with Russia is not the same as agreeing with Russia. We will speak clearly, bluntly, and directly, and we have been explicit in our condemnation of Russia's unlawful annexation of Crimea. As the government of Ukraine stated last month, we believe Canada will be strong and firm in its pressure on Russia.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I remind my honourable colleague that 10,000 Ukrainians have been killed. 1.5 million Ukrainians are still displaced. While the military aggression, the illegal occupation continues, Putin is now trying to destabilize Ukraine politically with proxy candidates in local elections. Ukraine is asking Canada to maintain sanctions. Is the minister aware just how concerned Ukraine is about Canada's support? Is the government's commitment to Ukraine quietly fading?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Russian interference and invasion of Ukrainian territory is completely unacceptable. The question now is how to communicate this in the most effective and strongest way to Russia. Canada is always interested in constructive engagement with a range of countries. Engagement is not about agreement, it is about holding countries to account. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, Amnesty International released a report today which highlights the disastrous human rights situation facing Muslim Tatars in Russian-occupied Crimea. Enforced disappearances, abduction, killing, and torturing of activists, cultural vandalism leave many wondering if the 1944 mass deportations will be repeated. We hear of engagement, dialogue, and reset, but things in Russia and Russian-occupied territories just keep getting worse. So why is this government still cozying up to the Putin regime?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We welcome the Amnesty report. It highlights a significant positive change that this government is taking in the area of human rights. Amnesty praises our leadership in resettling 25,000 refugees and applauds our commitment to launch an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women, something the last government refused to do. We've also abandoned the arbitrary process of the last government by committing to seek clemency for all Canadians facing capital punishment. It's no wonder Amnesty International applauds this government.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Month, I urged the Prime Minister to stand up for Canadian families who have been waiting too long to bring adopted children home from the DRC by calling President Kabila and asking for 16 exit visas. No phone call has been made and no progress has been made, despite the fact that this past week the DRC issued exit visas to American and European adopted children. So to the Prime Minister, will you pick up the phone and call President Kabila?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Consular Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for his question. Our government is concerns about this file. We are aware about the visas that have been granted to American adoptees. We have a plan to speak with the Foreign Minister of the Congo Republic. Our minister have spoken with him in the past. We will continue to be engaged on this file. We know this file involves many Canadians and they're interested in seeing their adopted children at home, and we're going to make sure that happens very quickly, Mr. Speaker.
I once again remind members to direct their questions to the chair. We don't use the word you around here unless you're talking about me. The honourable member for Desnethie, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, Wollaston Lake, the northern Saskatchewan community of 1,800 people, is running out of fuel and food. Mild weather has made the ice road across Wollaston Lake unsafe, so there is no way to get supplies. The Chief and Council of Hatchet Lake First Nation warn they may have to close their school and health center thanks to the shortage. Mr. Speaker, what will this government do to help school children, sick people, elders, and the rest of the community get the supplies they so badly need?
Yes. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her question and for her ongoing vigilance in the files. It is the Government of Canada recognizes the importance of winter roads in being able to get supplies to these remote communities, and we know that reliable network is essential. Because of climate change and because of this short season, we are really in trouble in terms of this kind of access that's no longer there. We are monitoring this, and we're going to find out how and work with the communities to find out how we can get their vital equipment there as soon as possible.
The Honourable Member for Churchill-Kiewatinock-Askew.
Mr. Speaker, Northern Manitobans and people in Northern Saskatchewan need action now from the federal government. And thanks to an unusually mild winter, as a result of climate change, ice roads to all isolated communities in Northern Manitoba open late, and some aren't even open at all. It is increasingly impossible for communities to get all the vital supplies they need, like housing, materials, food, and fuel. In Manitoba, the Prime Minister campaigned on partnering to support the East Side Road, which would provide a long-term solution. Will the Prime Minister keep his promise and work with isolated First Nations so that they can meet their needs this winter?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her question as well. It demonstrates really how widespread this problem is, from Saskatchewan to Manitoba to Northern Ontario. The short season, because of the mild winter, is really crippling communities because they can't get essential supplies in there, and we are going to work together to do that, but then we know we need long-term solutions.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Immigration Minister told Canadians that less than half of the Syrian refugees are now in homes. In December, he told the House that we should look to the private sector for solutions for the Liberals' lack of planning to meet their election quotas. For us, Mr. Speaker, these are people, not numbers or photo ops. When will the minister come clean and admit the Liberals didn't have a plan in December and they don't have a plan now? How long will he continue to treat refugees as numbers rather than people?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the member should check his facts. Yesterday I said more than half had been gone to permanent housing, not less than half. So I think he should get his facts right. And it's a bit much saying from the Conservative side that Liberals do not treat refugees as people. I am the Minister of Immigration and Refugees, thanks to our Prime Minister's concern, and we are committed to bring 25,000 people who are refugees to live and thrive in this country by the end of the month.
The Richmond-Arthabaska.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention that I have faith in the various security organizations responsible for the Syrian files. It's been explained to me several times that if there is any doubt whatsoever regarding Canadian security, the file is immediately withdrawn. But to this day, no one can tell me how many cases have been rejected for national security reasons. Can the Minister of Public Safety give me a figure? Can he tell me if it was 1, 5, 10, or 200, or even more? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
The system that is in place to protect security in relation to the Syrian refugee project has been designed by the Department of Immigration and Refugees with the expert advice of the CBSA, the RCMP, and CSIS. They have done their job exceptionally well, and at the end of the project, when we have all of the information about how successful it has been, we'll be happy to share that with the House.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker,
We all know that the security of Canadians should be the #1 priority for any government. Now, we all know as well that the Liberals have been putting Canadians at risk by fast-tracking refugees into the country in order to meet their election quota. So I have a simple question for the Minister, Mr. Speaker. Of the total number of refugees accepted, what percentage were given extra security screening?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the system we have put in place was designed with the best expertise in Canada, and I'm very pleased to say that the Commissioner of the RCMP, the Director of CSIS, and the President of the CBSA have all said, on their own volition, that they believe that this system is thorough and satisfactory, and it's accomplishing the Canadian objective to get this humanitarian project done and to get it done properly and safely, and that is in fact the case.
The Honourable Member for Moncton Riverview Dieppe. Mr. Speaker, having 23 years of experience with the Kodiak Regional Service of the RCMP, I have always been proud to work with my colleagues in a respectful atmosphere. All employees of the RCMP deserve to work in a healthy workplace free of harassment. What is the Minister doing to ensure that there is a respectful workplace that is healthy and free of harassment for all police officers as well as civilian employees within the RCMP? The Honourable Minister.
A clear mandate to ensure that the RCMP is indeed a healthy workplace. Sexual harassment is never acceptable. On February the 4th, I asked the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission to undertake a comprehensive review of RCMP policies and procedures to evaluate the implementation of recommendations against harassment which were made by that commission in 2013. Instances of harassment must be met with comprehensive, transparent investigations, strong discipline, support for victims, and action to ensure a safe and respectful environment going forward.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is quite shameful earlier this week we learned that the Employment Minister doesn't believe that private members' bills are an important piece of legislation. In the last Parliament, many private members' bills were brought forward on important issues on both sides of the floor. On this side of the House, I'm proud to say that we encourage our members to bring forward important issues from their constituents and bring forward private members' bills on issues important to all Canadians. The Employment Minister is muzzling union members by taking away their democratic right to a secret ballot. Why is the Liberal government muzzling their own members by discrediting private members' bills?
Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We want to clarify that Bill C-4 is here to reset a stage which is fair and balanced. Each individual collective bargaining unit can decide on their own system that they choose to use, whether it is the card system or the voting system. The point of C-4 is to bring fairness and balance, something that was missing because of the other side.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, 6 months ago, my constituent, Alison Auser, experienced one of the worst nightmares a parent can ever face. Her 4 children, were taken by her ex-husband. Alison has reason to believe her children are now in Kurdistan, in northern Iraq. Today, she is here in Ottawa, urging the government to do everything it can to help bring her children safely home. Can the minister please inform the House and Alison what actions the government is taking to ensure the safe and immediate return of her children?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Consular Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question and for his tireless work on this important file. Our government remains committed and deeply concerned about the safety and the well-being of the Azar children. We have been in constant and regular contact with Ms. Azar. In fact, I met with her yesterday and I spoke to her again today before question period. I want to assure the House that our officials are working closely with government authorities here and abroad, and including law enforcement agencies. And I want to take a moment to recognize Ms. Azar's strength and commitment. I want to assure her and this House that we are very committed to the return of her children safely at home.
Honourable Member for St. Catharines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
St. Catharines is home to the Port Dalhousie Piers, which served as the terminus for the first Welland Canal, on which St. Catharines' very existence was at one time reliant. Under the previous government, this important landmark and popular tourist destination was abruptly closed due to safety concerns. Can the Minister of Fisheries and Ocean please update the House on the Port Dalhousie Pier review and his department's work with the City of St. Catharines to revitalise and maintain the piers for future generations to enjoy?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from St. Catharines for his fine question. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to assure the member and the people in his riding that the department understands the significance of these piers to the community and that they are an important local tourist attraction. Access to the piers has been restricted in order to protect public safety. We have recently received follow-up engineering reports and will work with the city on assessing short and long-term repair options. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal chair of the Heritage Committee was awfully concerned that nobody was regulating the content of the Internet. As we speak, there's just a whole lot of Internet going on out there with the emails and the Google and the kids twittering. Now, she's worried that, and I quote, anyone can publish anything. You know, when Al Gore invented the Internet, he did it in a way that protected free speech. We know that the Prime Minister has great admiration for dictatorships like China. Is this government going to take a page from the original Red Book and start stifling free speech?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for his question.
Go ahead.
We understand the importance of technological changes and the culture that is in line with these technological changes, and that is why our government is committed to really look into the opportunity of...
Order. Let's settle down, folks. We want to hear the answer to that question. The Honourable Minister of... I know members are anxious to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage has the floor. Will have order.
Clearly, Mr. Speaker, there's no issue with free speech in this House. Thank you. And Thank you. So, we will launch public consultation on the digital shift in order to really seize the opportunity, but not only that, to really understand the impact the Internet may have on users and creators in general. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's so unfortunate that we have to protest to ask a law and order government to respect the law. It's ridiculous. We are in the process of losing exactly the kinds of jobs we need in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, these exactly are the words, these are the precise words, rather, that our current Prime Minister said at the sides of Avios workers in 2012. I couldn't have said it better myself. The law is clear and guarantees jobs in Quebec, at home, in Canada. The two decisions against Air Canada are clear, and it's just as clear that Air Canada is not complying with either.
Honourable Ministre des Transports.
Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am, of course, very pleased to hear that Air Canada will be investing in Bombardier C-Series jets. It's good news. And they will support the setting up, establishment of a Centre of Excellence for the next 20 years. That's also good news. And I'd want to say that when I answered the member's question from Carleton Eagle Creek earlier, I heard the member from the Beauce say that no one wants to buy C-Series jets. I'd like him to explain himself on that.
This brings a question period to an end. Tabling of a point of order. The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and yesterday the House refused its consent to table the November fiscal monitor, which showed that Conservatives left the Liberals with a surplus. Of course, the December fiscal monitor showed that we left them with an even bigger surplus than the November one.
Well,
Can I
let's
say?
Okay. Remember, it sounded like debate there for a while, but the member did ask for unanimous consent to table the December document. Is there unanimous consent? No, there is not. Order. Tabling of documents.